Hello, writers. I'm Josiane Fortin, and today I'm interviewing Sama Morningstar. Sama has self-published one book called Goddess, Lovers, and Dreams, Alchemical Poetry. So please tell us what this book is about. It sounds so intriguing.
Thank you. Well, this isn't actually my first self-published book. It's just the first one that was on Amazon, like the
Okay.
for global distribution. I used to hand publish, like actually, take my hand typed pages to the copy shop, copy them out, arrange them, hole punch, make a cover with homemade paper and a manila folder, and print out, cut out little titles and glue it on with I used to
So how
call them,
many books do you have?
tie it all up with string, with twine, with a string on
Yeah.
it. So I did two like that, and I used to sell them at newsstands.
Okay.
But I haven't made any of those in a long time. I think I have one still sitting around somewhere.
Yeah. And
that
have
I
you
show.
recycled that content? Like, don't you want to recycle the content?
The poetry that I wrote in the Goddesses, Lovers, and Dreams book, I really went through a lot of transformation. So yes, there are some of the poems in my older books that I might consider, and I still have the original, those original writings that might be included in an anthology or something. But the Goddesses, Lovers, and Dreams book poetry was, I was writing that across the span of huge transformation and change and growth for myself. So that's the poetry that felt really juicy for me to publish. And it's like a big, it's pretty fat book. It's, the others were little skinny little books. But this one was lots of rich material of, looking at my dreams, connecting with the goddess, like the feminine aspect of the divine for the first time in my life. I'd always been taught about, the more masculine aspects of the divine. All the religious upbringing I had was around that, and didn't size anything feminine being divine, right? And so learning about that was hugely transformative for me, and it's fundamental to my work now. So those poems were all about the transformation process that went on for me over the course of maybe 15-20 years.
Yeah.
Of really integrating that experience of the feminine is also a source of divine guidance, and one that actually has a lot to teach us and give us and help us to heal from the detrimental effects of this long-term domination of the masculine over the feminine that's been
Yeah.
going on, that we've been experimenting with, that isn't turning out so well. And that we need to come back into partnership between these polarities, instead of thinking one is dominant, better,
Right. And is
supreme,
it
or
because you wrote the book that you got inspired to start a business around that, or is it the business that brought you to write the book?
Very good question. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and while I was writing that book was when I was doing the preparation for my current business simultaneously. I was studying holistic healing. I was in massage school. I was studying massage therapy, and I was having my own spiritual awakening around that, oh my goodness, I was connecting with my body for the first time, more so than ever. Like, I thought I was connected to my body, but suddenly I was having a whole new experience of that. I was connecting to my spirit, to my soul, more than I ever had, at the same time as connecting with these goddesses that were coming to me. That book started out because journal book, we used to have bookstores. Okay, used bookstores. That's where you would get books. So
Yeah. Back in the days.
you still can find an odd bookstore here and there, but most people, I live out in the woods, and so I get my books online now. But back then, I would go to a bookstore, and books would fall off the shelf into your hand. Those of you who still go to bookstores might understand this. If you've not been to shopping at bookstores, you might want to try it. You go in and a book will fall off the shelf into your hand and refuse to go back on the shelf. This is a very
Yeah, I've
common
heard that before. This never happened to me. I go to
No.
libraries all the time. Well, before the pandemic, I used to go into library. I guess I'm not connected like you are.
Oh, this only happened to me. This is the only time in my life that that's happened. Okay. And this was a journal book. It was, I can't even remember the title of the book. I think I have it on my bookshelf. It was spiral bound, right? It's because it's a journal and the front page is fallen off, torn, and it's like totally, because it was these beautiful paintings of goddesses from different cultures around the world, with a little blurb at the top of the next page about the goddess. Very limited, no big mythologies, no stories, just like, the culture that she's from, what her name means, and what jewelry she's wearing. Like, because the paintings had like very specific, appropriate clothing or jewelry in them that was like representing actual archaeological art items. So the paintings were well researched, and here it was. And I just started writing out these conversations with these goddesses. And, this wasn't unprecedented for me, because when I was being raised in Christianity, I really engaged with the Bible in that same way, where I would have journals and I would read passages of the Bible. This was this approach to Bible study that I was taught. And I would be reading a passage in the Bible, and I would write in my journal one verse from the Bible, and then I would write reflections, prayers, insights about that verse.
Use that technique to do your writing with the goddesses.
Exactly. Even though I didn't have a Bible, I didn't have a text, I only had these pictures and the briefest of descriptions. And I had also started to attend, feminine spirituality events where they would have a ritual out in the woods, friends, where we had a circle where we would. So I got exposed to Wiccan spirituality.
So all those activities inspired your poetry.
Right. But the massage therapy training was also part of that. So that all of that was preparation and growth. And that's where a lot of that book got written.
Okay. And how long did it take you to write the full book? Because you said it was pretty thick.
Yeah, I think the poetry in there spans over the course of maybe 15 or 20 years. But there was a good 10-year period in there where I wasn't writing as much, because I got into yoga, because writing before that had been my primary healing process, right? And then I got more into the body and the somatic part of healing. And then I left the ashram that I had helped build, and then started to do more writing again. So it came back, and that was always my experience. It would come and go. And then that's after all of that, that's when I realized, okay, I need to publish this book. And I had tried to before, sent it to a publisher back before self-publishing was a thing, and was rejected. And I'm not the kind of author that could send it in a million times and collect rejection letters. That was just like, never doing that again for me, You
got one rejection?
One rejection. And that was it. I was done. And then self-publishing, my mom was like, she told me she self-published her husband's book, and they were making $700 a month on it, because he wrote a book about Vietnam, and I guess he's in all these communities talking, vets, Vietnam vets and other kind of war vets talking about the war. And she did it for him. She uploaded it. She did the whole thing. So I'm like, okay, Mom, help me with mine. I had was it printed up on paper. All my I typed it up back when I got rejected, and this is now 10 years later. Yeah. And so I'd had to take photos and convert them to because I'd lost the computer that I typed it up way back then, right? So I took all these photos and published it, and my husband drew the art on the cover.
That's fun. Yeah. And from that experience, do you feel like you have advice that you would like to share with people who are looking to self-publish?
Well, I'm learning a lot more now because I'm in the process of publishing my second book, that self-published, that will be available print on demand internationally, and it's called Herbal Womb Wellness, and it's a workbook.
Do you have a launch date yet?
I'm planning on starting the pre-sales, which will help support my editing and formatting costs. Because what I did learn from having my mom do the first one is that it's good to have a professional. Like, she did her best to format it, but if you have anything tricky like a poetry book, it's a little tricky to get each poem to start on a new page. And then a workbook too, I want certain things on certain pages, and I don't want it to be like half the page is on one page, and
Right.
so hiring a professional designer and formatter is going to be something that I need to plan for, to have money saved up, or I'm going to do a little fundraising too, to be able to pay for that kind of professional help, so that the book looks like my poetry book. I need to do some editing and pay for a formatter for that before I feel super confident to promote it, because it's not quite how I'd like it to be. And
Okay.
so people still want to read it, and a few people have purchased it, but if I were really going to promote it, I would want to
Yeah, so you
upgrade
want
it.
to upgrade it a little bit,
Yeah.
upgrade the look of it before you
Yeah,
start promoting it more.
exactly. And I didn't think I would care about that, but I do. And new authors might not think that matters so much, but if you get your first book back and you're like, oh gosh, I guess we didn't really edit it that well, and how did that get in there? Gosh, and the pages don't quite line up quite right, and it doesn't quite look right. And then the book is just sitting over there, and you're not putting it out there.
Yeah, you
So
need to love it to sell it, for
yeah, you
sure.
have to love it and feel really good about it. And so that's what I learned. I was like, it's better to be done than perfect, right? So get it out there, which is good. Now I have a published book. It's better to be done than perfect, but I'm not promoting it.
Yeah, but at least you learned a lot. You learn more doing it imperfectly than not doing it at all.
Exactly. It got momentum because now I know what some of the steps are. And I also encourage people to find support and get into other groups and workshops. I took a workshop with a group of people online, with an author who'd done really well, self-publishing author, and she went through all these different possibilities and options, and she, from a perspective that I could really resonate with. So I encourage people to look for self-publishing educational programs. And I have another one that I'm planning on taking next year for another book, not the one that I'm publishing this year, but the one I'm planning to publish after that. And it'll be a year-long program, because that's more of my book. The next book is going to be more substantial. This workbook is maybe 250 pages, whereas and that's a workbook, so it's not all text. A lot of it is
Yeah.
journal pages and check boxes and different things like that from a template, that a workbook template. But this other book is going to be more of a literary book, and so that's going to take some more time, and it has a lot of pages.
Yeah.
So,
And we talked about, like, my next question was about the hardest thing about becoming a self-published author. And you did say that the editing part, like
mhm,
how to place everything in the right place,
mhm.
was hard. But is there something else that you say was hard about becoming a self-published author?
I think editing in general. So there's editing and there's formatting. So the formatting is what puts everything in the right place. And I don't even know how to do that. So basically, the hard part about that is actually saying, I need to invest some money to hire somebody who knows how to do this, to do it well. Or, take a class to learn how to do it myself, because I'm good at figuring things out, but I've tried to read like the formatting guidelines on self-publishing print on demand websites, and it's like another language. My eyes get crossed, and I'm a pretty smart lady. And so it's like, what do these terms even mean? So you'd have to take like a college level class even to even figure out how to do all that. And so that's the hard part, is feeling like, okay, self-publishing sounds great, but there's some aspects to it that are, you really have to learn how to do. And then the editing itself, though, like actually going back and proofreading everything, actually for my poetry, like I'm the kind of poet, a poem comes to me, it all comes out, I'm done with it. Maybe as I'm typing it up later, I'll adjust a word here or a word there. But I'm not going back and reworking it until, it's not happening. The poem, it's got the moment is done. It's
Yeah.
over,
At the spur of the moment, it was something you wanted to say at that precise time, and you don't
Yeah.
want to alter it by going back and changing it.
No. And my approach to poetry, it's not an intellectual thing. It's a feeling thing. It's a channeling of the soul.
Yeah.
It's, it's a birth, and it has a life of its own. And, yeah. So the editing was challenging because I hadn't really ever done that with my poetry. Now I know that going back and just doing proofreading, I'm not going back to change the poetry. I just need to make sure that in the final document, it's, not having misspellings or,
Right.
my mom, like, thinking that the word I meant was this when really what I meant was that,
Yeah.
So that's hard. And in the literary book, in the workbook, that's kind of easier because it's not as intense. But in the literary book, one of my writing your book mentors talks about how like Stephen King talks about how you write your first draft and then be prepared because you're in the editing process, you're going to scrap 80% of it.
Yeah, we have to rewrite a lot. Like in my experience, I do rewrite a lot, but I just don't scrap like 80% of it. But I do rewrite like 100% of it.
You rewrite the whole thing on the
Yes,
first
for
editing
sure.
draft.
Like many times, many times.
Uh-huh.
I'm wondering, like, how do you plan to promote your new book? Do you have a marketing plan for that?
So I'm going to do a pre-sale campaign, and what I'm kind of leaning towards to start, well, first of all, the book will be part of my online program. So I have several online courses that the book will be included for new students. So they'll need to purchase, or it will be included in the price of the program. And I may have like a book club where they can just purchase the book and then be involved in working through it together with others, but I'm not adding a whole lot of guidance, hand holding. It can be a do-it-yourself kind of a book club. And I've also proposed that other feminine empowerment book clubs host my book as their book of the month or whatever. And I'd be happy
that would be awesome for you to get more customers.
Exactly. And so I have several people that lined up for that I'm going to share the pre-purchase campaign in their groups and say, okay, in January or February, whenever you guys want to do it, and if you pre-purchase my book now, you're really supporting me, and I'm happy to, come in because you did that and give a bonus talk or bonus hand holding,
That's such a good idea. I love that.
Yeah. So that's part of my plan for now. And then it'll just be an ongoing thing where, I'll be doing introductory workshops and summits and this and that. And I'll be mentioning my, because I'm not just promoting my book, I'm promoting my whole business. And this book is like the handbook for
it's a piece of
trainings
of your business.
And that's one of the workshops I took about marketing a book was all about that. There's all these different ways. Like she gave us a document of 100 different ways to sell your book or to make money with your book. And, some of them were about doing talks and showing up for different events and having a copy of your book on everybody's seat and giving a lot of books away. It's the way that you do it, so you're getting paid to do the talk and everybody gets a book, or everybody's buying the book and then you don't get paid for the talk. You tell people, the organization here, if you get everyone to buy my book, then I'll speak for free, or just different deals like that. So that's where I got
that's very interesting to have different business models around the books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of my mentors talks about how the book becomes your calling card for your business.
Yes.
So she says she always has 100 books ready to go, so she can send them out. Like, I'm thinking of when I have when I'm a guest on people's podcasts. I've had guests on my podcast about their book, and then they send me a complimentary copy of their book. And the one person who did that, I talk to people all the time because their book is complimentary to my business.
Yes.
And I'm constantly talking to clients and picking up her book and say, I really recommend you get a copy of this book, not because I'm trying to sell her book, but because it has the quality of content and the information in it compiled in one place. And that's why she sent me the book, because she knew I'd be doing that just automatically because of what she got to know me and what my work is about. So our work is, so collaborating with, the collaboration is my whole business model. So collaborating with other practitioners in similar but complementary lines of work with similar businesses. So I'm going to be reaching out to all the people that I've been interviewing on my podcast and like that, and saying, hey, will you present my book to your community? Do you want to do a book club in your community with my book? And I'll come in and do a talk, and just reaching out to people like that.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what your podcast is about and what is the name if people want to look it up.
I actually have 2 podcasts.
Okay.
One is called Womb-Centered Healing, and that's on YouTube, although I don't know if you'd find it on YouTube by searching that. You might just have to search Sama Morningstar on YouTube. And they're both my podcasts on YouTube are under the same name, Sama Morningstar. Okay, so the first one is called Womb-Centered Healing. So some of them on there will be about that. And then and you can also get the audio podcast through Anchor and all the other audio podcast platforms. You should be able to find Womb-Centered Healing. My second podcast is called Writing from the Womb. I interview authors on that one, and I read excerpts from my poetry book, and they read excerpts from their books, and we have conversations based on that. And it's the whole sense that there's a different place to be writing from our creative center that feels very different than if we're writing intellectually.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. And if people want to know more, can you share your website? Do you have social media?
Yeah, so you can find me on social media at Sama Morningstar. Okay, Facebook, Instagram, although I'm more a Facebook person. My website is wombcenteredhealing.com.
Awesome. I'll make sure to share those links in the show notes if you want to look at them. Thank you so much for being with us today. It was so much fun talking to you.
Likewise. Thank you.